The deadly assassin contracted by the Empire, X7, is closer than ever to discovering the identity of his target. He's already infiltrated the top levels of the Rebel Alliance and gained Princess Leia's trust, but he still hasn't been able to get Leia to give up the classified information he desperately needs. After all, Leia Organa is unbreakable, the youngest, toughest member of the Galactic Senate, and, since its dissolution, the fiercest opponent of the Empire. She's survived kidnapping and torture under Darth Vader, but she's never had to do anything more difficult than her latest mission. She is going home. And X7 knows it will be the perfect opportunity to destroy her.
Welcome back to the Padawan Library, the Star Wars Junior Novel Podcast. I'm Levi Paratic, and with me, as always, Tim May.
Hello!
And this week, we are talking about Star Wars Rebel Force number 2, Hostage, by Alex Wheeler, ? And we didn't do any sort of I just hit my mic with the book. We didn't watch a movie this week, anything tied to the title. We're winging it like it's an old time episode.
I got some plans. I made a couple lists, some Tim lists, some classic stuff.
Tim list.
Let me pull this up. You.
Well, let's have a brief discussion about something that you and I have not discussed yet. Something that we've hyped to no end on this show.
Oh, okay. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, Well, I'm talking about Ridley Scott's House of Gucci.
House of the Gooch. I saw it before we recorded last week's episode, and you hadn't seen it yet.
Right.
I had a very good time. I think all the performances are very fun. I think Pacino in particular is great, actually really good in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like, I love the man. We've sung his praises these last few months, Ridley Scott. I think it's somewhat indifferently directed. Mm-hmm. And that is my main issue with it. But I still think it's a fun movie, worth seeing.
I think it's a fun movie, definitely worth seeing. I think like the front half of the movie is a whole lot of fun.
First half's great.
Great, and then by the end, it's like it's kind of predictable. It's like kind of sad. It's not like
the biggest problem is that if you look at the timeline, it's just like all that stuff happens over such a long stretch. Mm-hmm. Like the divorce is like 85, and then he gets murdered in 95. So It's like there's this whole 10-year period that's kind of glossed over, and like because the movie's trying to be a fun kind of movie, but like it's not just that like she ordered a hit on him and that's how the marriage ended, because that's what that's the movie that I think that everybody involved wishes it was, but it's like actually like they've been divorced for a decade and she like is still mad about it, and it's like that's just kind of like. This is like a fucked up story. It's a bummer. You know what I mean?
It is. I noticed your favorite line was I don't recall
not
hearing.
In the movie. Adam Driver saying, "I have been a Gucci all my life." Not in the movie.
Not in the movie. We're also remembering some of the previews, like Salma Hayek was like a TV psychic, and that's also
that's in the movie. What are you talking about?
That is in the movie. Okay,
yeah.
I miss New York. I had to go to the bathroom really bad when they went to New York City, and when Pacino invites them, and I was
That's
like, okay,
like some of the best stuff in the movie.
I'm like, I'll get back, and they'll be in New York, and I get back, and they have already left New York. I couldn't believe how quick that scene was, but I thought I normally
she first sees Salma Hayek on TV, and she talks to she talks
on the
to
phone.
him. No, she calls on the phone and like talks live to her on TV. So yeah,
I missed that. I thought Leto.
That was a good scene. Good scene.
I thought Leto was fun. Normally, a person who I don't like.
He was delightful. Honestly,
delightful.
I when he first showed up, I legitimately thought he was saying pasta, 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 but he was actually saying like pass the ball because they were playing like soccer.
Yeah, when you told me this last week, and whenever it happens in the movie, I was cackling because it's like, oh, it does sound like pasta, pasta, pasta. He looks like he could be Mario. Like that is how. Like I know Chris Pratt is Mario, but like he looks like he
more
could be
of a
like
Luigi look, in my opinion.
Okay, all right.
He's like so tall and lanky, you know.
I got you.
I mean, he's has a gut, but he's like lanky.
Yeah,
I feel like Mario's more squat.
But I thought Pacino was really good. I thought
fantastic.
I thought the scene where he signs away his shares, I was like, yes, this is like perfect casting to get like Michael Corleone in this role right here, just to sign that away.
Well, I'm happy that Pacino the last few years has just been in some real movies. You know what I'm saying? Like he's been in so many just junky like movies so below his.
You mean you don't like him advertising Dunkachinos in whatever Adam Sandler movie that was?
That's Jack and Jill. That's a little different, in my opinion. I'm not saying that's good, but to me, that's kind of in its own category. I'm talking more about like things like, Stand-Up Guys, or I don't know. Like these are movies that nobody has heard of. Like,
I have not heard of that.
Just junk, and it's like, this is like a real like role in a movie. Like obviously, The Irishman, is a whole other level.
Mm-hmm. But Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh he's delightful.
He's on a roll right now, so he's doing really well right now.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy for him. He's my favorite. I'm a basic film boy, and I love Jack, and I love Al, and I love Bobby D. It's it's what it is. I feel like Jack should be put on the level of those guys, and because I think he's retired, I feel like he doesn't get the same love. He's also a different kind of actor, more of a movie star, but I don't know. I love Jack. We should do a Jack movie before the end of the podcast.
That's a good idea. I agree.
All right. So because we didn't ever settled on a hostage movie to watch, I made a top 10 list of my favorite hostage movies.
All right.
So we'll go through this very quickly. I'm not going to All right. So number 10, Clint Eastwood's A Perfect World, 1993, stars Kevin Costner. Underrated movie, in my opinion.
Haven't seen it.
This is direct follow-up to Unforgiven.
All right. I watched Waterworld for the first time last night.
That movie stinks.
That movie is like a Kurosawa level, like they're trying to be like they're this huge grand movie, but it has like a lot of broken ideas in it.
Which cut did you watch?
I have no idea which cut I watched.
So I wish it's a movie I want to defend so badly because it's like my kind of shit, but like
it's not good.
There are things about it that are like it's amazing to look at in a lot of ways. You're like like they built that entire like sea city like on the ocean, which is deranged, and like there's like cool stuff about it, like especially the way it looks. But like Costner is so miscast. Like Costner just he just oozes like goodness on screen.
Right.
And he's playing such a scumbag.
Yeah, the character is completely despicable. Totally.
Truly like a bad man.
Yeah, he is a murderer. He, hits women. He wants to throw a child off the boat, which he actually does.
He lets somebody, almost get, gang raped. I don't mean to, be too, explicit here, but it's wild what goes on.
Yeah, he is not a good dude at all.
Costner is the ultimate movie decency on screen is kind of his whole thing. So it's just such a weird casting. It feels like a very third-rate Mad Max on the water, basically.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But there's some cool stuff in it. Hopper's a lot of fun. I don't know.
Is a cartoon, definitely on the lines of what he was doing in Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, and it's that Super Mario Brothers speed run that. Yeah, I mean, I love Hopper. I could watch him in anything.
Love Hopper. I agree. He's the Crow, number 4, I think. So with Edward Furlong and David Boreanaz. So Hopper shows up for a second. He put Satan.
Wait, so he's in the Crow 4? You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Crow 4, I believe, is the one where Edward Furlong plays the Crow.
Yes, okay. That must be one of Hopper's last movies. That's crazy. So, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
All right.
Not the last, but one of his last. Okay, number 9.
Perfect World, by the way. Check it out. Number 9, I have Nighthawks with Sylvester Stallone, Billy D. Williams, Rutger Hauer. Underrated movie. This is still Stallone before he decides he has to compete with Arnold, so it's still Stallone as a real actor. Really cool movie. Him and Billy D have very good chemistry. They're cops. They're not buddy cops. This is more of a 70s-ish movie. They're partners, and Rutger Hauer plays a maniac, on the loose in New York City, baby. Very good movie. Number 8, I got Captain Phillips.
I am the captain now.
Yeah, a great movie. One of the great Hanks performances of all time. Just really fucking good. 7. This is a little bit of a borderline case, but I got Panic Room, the Fincher movie, which I think is a pretty underrated movie. Just cool filmmaking. Number 6. I got the first half is really all that counts in this, but I got From Dusk Till Dawn. Which just a wild ass fucking movie.
I remember I watched that movie in high school, and I didn't finish it. I was like, I don't know. And the where I didn't finish it was before all the vampire shit happened. So I stopped it there. Never watched it.
Well, I love that
later in college.
Yeah, it's a crazy movie. People should check it out. Number 5, I got Inside Man, Spike Lee's Inside Man. A fucking great movie. Classic. Denzel, Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster making her second appearance on this list. Clive Owen, etc. Great movie. Number 4, I just kind of realized that, that's a hostage movie. Die Hard. Good movie.
It is. It sure is.
Yeah. Number 3, I got the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the original. Fucking great movie. One of the very great. Number 2, this one's a stretch because there's really only kind of one hostage sequence, really. I guess, but it's the main climax, so I'm fine with it. The Silence of the Lambs. Ever heard of it? Yeah, it's a good movie.
Best Picture, 1991, baby.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And my number 1, listen, Dog Day Afternoon, ever heard of it? Just a masterpiece. So I had to go with that. And then, that was actually not that hard a list to make, honestly. I was like, it wasn't too bad. I do want to also, a listener of ours, Franco, and former guest, of course, he begged us to not that he wanted us to talk about there's this apparently very controversial new Empire magazine list of the 100 greatest movies of all time that was voted for.
I have not heard of this.
Voted on by their readers. And listen,
we're not going to go through the 100 movies, of course, but we'll go through their top 10. Okay. And I have to say, his top 10 is rough.
Okay, I see it from 6 days ago.
I like many of these movies, but okay, you're not looking at it right now? Don't look at it.
I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh, let me reveal it to you on the air. This is
okay. All right.
We'll just go from 10 to 1. Number 10.
All right.
Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. Okay, fine.
All right.
Great movie. And most of these are very good movies, I want to say. I'm not talking shit on most of these, but number 9, Raiders of the Lost Ark. We love it. Big fans. That's fun. Again, I'm not talking. Individually, these movies, no problem. Not even any problem with most of them being on the list somewhere. But anyway, this is the worst one, and I can't believe it's here. This is truly despicable. Number 8.
Oh, God. Who could this be?
Avengers.
Oh.
Wait. Infinity War. Like, already terrible, no matter what entry. That 8 is so embarrassing.
That is the worst one of the 4 Avengers movies. That's the worst one. Yeah.
It's so bad.
Are you kidding me?
And I mean, any Marvel movie, obviously, honestly, on this 100 movies list, like the 100 greatest movies of all time.
Well, I'm at like 90 on the list because I'm looking at it, and they have at 91 Logan, a movie. If you're gonna put any sort of comic book movie, like that's the better one. That's better than Infinity War.
Well, let's just keep going. Number 7, we love it. Pulp Fiction. Number 6, we love it. Jaws, great movie. 2, Spielberg gets 2 in the top 10, but that's fine. Number 5, classic IMDb core, The Shawshank Redemption.
Classic.
Which whatever. I don't hate it, but it's,
to quote Last Man on Earth, it truly was a Shawshank Redemption.
Number 4, we love it, but insane for it to be anywhere near the top of this kind of list. The Dark Knight.
I agree.
Not even Nolan's best movie.
That should be. I agree. Not Nolan's best movie should be number 10. If it's in the top 10.
Number 3, fair enough. The Godfather, fine. Number 2, The Empire Strikes Back. And number 1, I feel like this is actually gonna hurt me to say this because I feel like I've been trying to get you to rewatch these movies the entire time I've known you, and now you're gonna not do it because you resent this being number 1 on this list. And it's Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring.
I'll watch them eventually.
They're fucking great. They're fucking great. It's ridiculous for that to be number 1. I love it. It's like one of my favorite movies, but the best movie ever made. Okay.
This is ridiculous because I'm looking at this list. Thor Ragnarok, number 83, right above Lost in Translation. I would put that over that. Then you have 82.
Oh, you put that over Thor Ragnarok? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, and then 82, Usual Suspects, 81, Psycho, L.A. Confidential. E.T. I'm sure there's so much Spielberg on this. Oh, In the Mood for Love, number 78. That's good.
Probably the only Wong Kar-wai on the list.
It's right below Return of the Jedi.
I love Return of the Jedi, but if you're making an all-encompassing, all-time list of the 100 greatest movies of all time, it's fucking ridiculous for that even to be on the list.
I agree.
I would put it on my personal top 100, but that's a different thing.
Ew! I want to vomit.
What?
Rear Window 72, and then in 70, because Up is in between this movie.
Yes, I see what it is.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I love that movie, but get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I mean, it's an embarrassing list. I mean, it's so weighted to the 21st century. It's insane.
I agree. It's ridiculous.
Literally, we're talking 20 years versus 100 years of cinema. It should and this is not about this is not a declinist narrative. Lots of great movies from the last 20 years that I love, but
it's I would say this thing is 75% 21st century.
Yeah, and if you throw in the 90s, it's 90%, since the 90s, in my opinion. I'm sure that's factual, honestly. Citizen Kane 40.
Is Back to the Future on this thing?
Of course. Are you kidding me? It's 13. It's number 13.
Okay, all right, number 13.
Are you kidding
me?
Like, of course it is. Like, Back to the Future, by the way, if I were making a 100 list, would be on it, but it would be like at the lower end, in my opinion. No shots. I love it. The Matrix is 20, below Inception, a movie that wishes it was The Matrix, and I love Chris Nolan. We're a pro Nolan podcast, but Inception wishes it was The Matrix. Wishes. Okay. It's just, it's 2001 at 23. That's so low for this kind of list. Again, if somebody's making their top 100, they can have all their personal idiosyncrasies all they want. But like, if you want to like be a representative of popular cinema, which is what Empire is, and I don't hate Empire magazine. I flip through it when I'm in Barnes and Noble sometimes, and I think it's a fine publication. It's a fine introductory, like, if you're a teen getting into movies, like, I think it's a perfectly fine thing. But this list stinks. It's a stink bug of a list. That's what I have to say about it.
Is this on the issue with Book of Boba Fett on the cover? Tamura's on the cover of this issue?
I mean, probably. Whatever the current issue is, it just came out.
That's the current issue, yeah. So there is a little bit of a Star Wars tie-in there. So that's a lot of fun. So
Brokeback Mountain, 96.
Oh my!
Love that movie, but Titanic 88. So low for this kind of list. That should be high in my opinion.
Very high.
Like, again, like there are like the Sight and Sound poll shouldn't have like half these, like 78% of these movies wouldn't be on a Sight and Sound poll, and I'd be fine with it. But if you're going to talk about like popular cinema, specifically of the kind of post Jaws period, which is really what they're talking about when they say all time. Because like plus throw in a couple Hitchcocks or whatever, but like if you're going to talk about that, then like that's all well and good, but like then some of these fucking movies, like I mean Whiplash, I like that movie, but what? Like why is that on here? Like I mean like like it's just deranged, some of this stuff. That's all I'm saying. It's deranged. Thank you, Franco, for riling us up. Heat at 30. Heat should be higher. Put that in the top 5, maybe. Okay. Interstellar 31, that's deranged, and I love that movie, but okay, whatever. Let's go.
All right. We should, you excited for Book of Boba Fett?
I am.
I am too. Yeah. End of this month. We're a month away from it.
Yeah, I know, crazy.
It's apparently only 7 episodes, though, is what I read. So.
They announced it was Rodriguez, obviously is directing like 3 of them, and then like who are the other? There was like a third. There was I know like Favreau and Filoni I think might be directing episodes, but like there was at least one other person announced. I feel like.
Okay, here we got John, Bryce Dallas Howard, Dave, Steph Green, and Kevin Tancharin. Let me see who that is.
Okay, so those are new people. That's interesting. And you saw that Dean Cundey shot this thing, right? Speaking of Back to the Future, you mentioned it.
I did see that.
That's pretty fucking cool. That dude hasn't made a real movie, like a movie that anyone gives a shit about since like I guess people give a shit about The Holiday. I think The Holiday is the last movie that like he made that had any cultural footprint whatsoever.
Okay, this Kevin character, this is a very interesting choice because he worked on the 2010 Mortal Kombat like miniseries.
I mean, okay, so he's a workman.
He also did the Glee 3D concert movie and 2009's remake of Fame.
I never saw that Fame remake. I love Fame, though. Have you seen Fame, the original?
I have not seen Fame, no.
Really fun movie. Fun and also depressing, but a good movie.
I saw it performed live at a local high school, though. I did.
Oh, that's cool. Got my mom tickets to go see Wicked in Cleveland at the end of the month.
Ooh, very nice.
That's the Christmas present. She doesn't listen to the podcast, so she's... yeah, that's very good. That'll be a fun time.
That will be a fun time. You will be defying gravity.
Oh! I'm actually, I'm aware that that's a song, and I'm sure I've heard a couple Wicked songs just by osmosis, but I've never... But that's, one of those... shows that I don't like listening to generally I don't like listening to soundtracks if I haven't seen some version of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like the context. I'm a musical fan, but like speaking of musicals, like early reactions to West Side Story are like it's the fucking best thing ever made.
It's great. I'm so excited.
We all ever should have fucking doubted it. It's like, oh, one of the best directors ever is directing a version of probably the best musical of all time, and we're like, oh, like, is it like fucking with the original too much? It's like, well, the original's an adaptation too, and like it's been adapted on stage like 5 million times. Like it's just a new version. Like everybody needs to chill, apparently. And I'm talking to myself mostly. Like I needed to chill. I'm like, this is a slam dunk. These are two things I love.
Christmas is going to be amazing because that comes out, and then that's the wide release of Licorice Pizza too, which everybody also says is amazing.
Well, actually, West Side Story is next weekend. That's not Christmas. So.
Is it really? I swear.
Yeah, it's December 10th. December 10th.
Wow. All right.
Can't wait for Licorice Pizza. Jesus. I can't wait till it's even in Cleveland. I'll drive to see it.
I know the wide release is Christmas Day, apparently.
That's fine. Everybody whining about that needs to chill. That's how fucking movies that aren't aimed at literally everybody on Earth do well. You build an audience over time and build the hype. That's how, and by the way, it bore out. They opened in 4 theaters. They have the highest per theater average in 3 years. And that's how it works. Compare that to the West movie, and I love the West movie, and we talked about it, and it did okay, and it had a fairly high thing, but they released it in 40 theaters first weekend, and then it was full wide release the next weekend, and it fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you got to build this stuff up. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about box office, but we got a lot of book to talk about.
We do have a lot of book to talk about.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was a classic opening segment.
It was a classic because we
even got a little Star Wars in, a little bit.
Just a little
bit. All right, everybody. So stay tuned. We're going to be talking Hostage, the second book in the Rebel Force series, when we return. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Paratic.
Hello.
And this week, we're on to the second book in the Rebel Force series by Alex Wheeler, and that's what we're going to say. Now, Wheeler. A big thing happens in this book that it's was this a man? Okay, so if Alex Wheeler is not Jude, let's spoil it.
Okay.
This book features Ferris Olin, a character created by Jude Watson in Jedi Quest, and who was the lead character of Last of the Jedi. And it picks up very specifically from where we left him in Last of the Jedi. Now, obviously, another writer could follow that up. That happens in all kinds of serialized fiction. But, I'm just what was... Again, there is no information about this Alex Wheeler anywhere on the internet.
I know. And when we've read over 40 of Jude Watson's books, and this feels so in line with a Jude Watson book.
I agree with that. I will say I'm worried that because we thought that going in that this is a confirmation bias scenario, and maybe we're missing some obvious thing that that makes it not a Jude book. I don't know. I have no reason to believe she would lie. That's the problem.
I know.
What would be the reason to lie? So I'm just gonna say it's Alex Wheeler. I'm sure, and maybe it's just a pen name for another person, and that's why we can't find any information. But it's that's wild. I'm just saying that's weird.
It is. It's so. It feels so suspicious.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. It's a grand mystery. Maybe we'll get our own Deep Throat and we'll solve the mystery by the end of this series. But
we get a caller while we're recording,
and he'll be like, "I can only meet you in person." And you'll be like, "I guess I'm driving 2 days up to DC. We'll meet in DC."
Yeah, DC in a parking garage.
All right. Okay, so...
Oh, I was thinking, since we're bringing the show back to form, back to our classic form, we used to do this by chapter. One person takes one chapter, one person takes the other chapter. So let's try that. Because did you take as detailed...
I took detailed notes on every single chapter.
All right. Well, I took a brief summary on every single chapter, so we could still pass it back and forth.
All right. So this book opens with something that blew my mind. Chapter 1. I have my notes here say, "Holy shit, Yoda, Yoda, Yoda." Obi-Wan's ghost shows up to tell him about his failure, but Yoda has to eat. And then I said, just read pages 3 through 5. So I'm going to pull it out. All right. I'll be Obi-Wan, you be Yoda. You can do a Yoda, right?
Sure. All right.
He's powerful, Master Yoda, Obi-Wan said. I can sense it within him. Young, but...
Young, yes. Yoda nodded. And old, too. Yes, too old. Never had a Jedi begun his training as an adult. Brought to the temple as infants, they grow up knowing nothing but the Jedi way. In Yoda's long memory, only one exception had been made on this front. One Padawan so promising that it seemed foolish not to train him, though he was already 9 years old with memories of a different world and attachments to a different life. The Jedi Council had allowed the training to proceed, though they had their doubts. Rather than trusting his judgment, Yoda had put his trust in Qui-Gon Jinn and Anakin Skywalker. Yes, they had all failed, one way or another.
He's impatient, Obi-Wan admitted. His face was was webbed by dark creases, his eyes underlined with dark hollows. Death had not relieved him of the burdens he carried. And stubborn.
Remind me, that does, of another Jedi.
Obi-Wan frowned. No, the boy is nothing like his father.
Not Anakin, Yoda said mildly. You? He smiled, remembering the brash young man who, from the start, had wielded a lightsaber like it was part of him.
The boy must be trained, but he is impulsive, Obi-Wan said. Courageous, bright, loyal, yes. And yet, quick to anger, impatient. Perhaps too willing to choose the easy path.
Human he is. Things are.
Yoda, sorry, you broke up there.
I broke up? All right.
Yeah.
Human he is, Yoda pointed out. Flawed, all living beings are.
He has greatness in him, Obi-Wan said. Of that I am sure. But as to what form that greatness will take, he hung his head. I was sure about Anakin, too, once.
Responsibility we must all take, Yoda said firmly. You for your choice, me for mine. Anakin only, Anakin for his.
Obi-Wan paused, the guilt plain on his face. Yoda knew he blamed himself. For Anakin, for Darth Vader, for all that followed. We need Luke, Obi-Wan said, but if we proceed too quickly, if we make the wrong choices, he sighed. I sense great power in him, perhaps greater even than Anakin's.
Search inside yourself, Yoda said. No, the answer you do.
He is too old for us to shape, Obi-Wan said slowly, as if sifting through his thoughts as he spoke. He is neither Padawan nor master. He has grown into his own person, without our help or interference. Now we must give him the space to grow into his own man. Obi-Wan sighed, gazing out at the murky bog, then up at the stars. He will be tested. I cannot save him from that. He must be tested. Perhaps this was our mistake with Anakin. Not that we found him too late, but that we put too much upon him too soon. We burdened him with power he could not control, with responsibility he could not bear. This time, we must be cautious. Let Luke become the man he needs to be, and hope that this is the man we need him to be.
Yoda nodded. This was the same judgment he had reached. Ready, he is not, Yoda said. Patient, we must be.
They could not let fear of Luke's future prevent them from training the boy, but they could equally not let their own eagerness for a champion fool them into seeing something that wasn't there. And of course, Luke was not their only hope. There was another.
Ooh.
All right, so that was just an incredible opening. I was just blown away. I was not expecting that at all. Like, it was completely unexpected. It's very exciting. All right. Chapter 2, though, we cut back to if you guys remember the previous book, we're now
Let me take over here for chapter 2.
Okay.
All right. So we left off in our last book where our heroes, along with X7, had just left Molinist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the banking planet, yeah. Munilist. All right, and they are on their way to Delea. All right. Delea is the sister planet to Alderaan, and something we learn about Delea is that years and years ago, Alderaan decided, no, we will have no manufacturing on our planet, and they moved all their manufacturing to Delea. So whereas Alderaan is this pristine, perfect world, Delea is a manufacturing planet.
Well, we don't really learn that till chapter 3, but that's...
Sorry. Oh, that's where in chapter 4 we learned the capital of Delea. Classic Jude. That's something she would do, is put the capital of a planet.
Oh, yeah. It's something only she would do. All right.
But anyway, our heroes have to drive to Delea, and to get to there, they have to drive through the asteroid field that is the remnants of Alderaan. And we have a moment there where Leia is in the cockpit and she has to watch as they drive through the remains of her homeworld.
Yeah, I say they graze a few asteroids. 3PO whines. Han tells them him to shut up. The cockpit begins to fill with smoke. Situation dire.
Yeah, because chapter 3, at the beginning of chapter 3, the shields are at 10%.
Right, and so anyway, chapter 3, Luke, he's feeling useless again, and he kind of instinctively grabs his lightsaber when there's danger, but there's nothing that he can do about this smoke thing. So Han thinks they might have to abandon ship, but Luke spots a clear pathway to Delea, and so they make it through. Han offers to give Leia some time before landing, but she's having none of it. She's just like, what? That's something you would do, basically. She's just talking shit about Han nonstop through this book. So, anyway, Elad, if you remember Elad, which is the cover identity for X7, who is an Imperial agent, who's trying to figure out who was the pilot who blew up the Death Star. He already suspects Luke at this point. He slips away to his cabin and relaxes into his X7 self. And he contacts his commander, and he reports that Leia and crew are headed to Delea, and that, so Delea has become a haven for Alderaan's refugees, and her presence is not going to be reported to the Empire, and she'll preside over memorials and relief projects, but on the low, though, she's there to recruit people for the Alliance. So X7 claims that he's closer and closer to confirming who the pilot is, though we already know that he knows, basically, that it's Luke. So moving on, they're already on the planet, and this is where we find out a lot of this information you were talking about with the kind of relationship between Delea and Alderaan. She's riding in a speeder. Leia's riding a speeder with General Riken, the homie. Shouts to the king.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been there organizing survivors for the last few weeks, and the rest of the gang's following another speeder. But Riken leads Leia. He basically tells her that, because it's this manufacturing place, already has a kind of rough economy, and so he suspects that while the prime minister is saying all the right things, he's nervous that basically they're not going to want to take on these refugees because theoretically at least it would be unpopular maybe, but so they there is the capital city of Leilani. You're right, you pointed out. Alex shares that great writerly trait with Jude that they want there to be a capital city pointed out.
Okay, here's my theory. Jude was going through the fan fiction sites, and she was like, "Wow, this Alex Wheeler writes just like me. This is my apprentice, and you will write."
Perhaps maybe it's one of those people that we suspect Ghost wrote a couple of the Jedi Apprentice books.
You're right. That is possible.
Because remember, there were those thanks.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember which books those were. Anyway, we didn't like those books though, and we like these, so a little bit different. That we suspected were ghost written. We don't know they were ghost written. Anyway, so basically, the Prime Minister Mana. His official position is one of support, but he faces some opposition. He really probably opposes it himself, including from his devious deputy, Var Leone. And so Riken introduced Leia to this Alderaan survivor named Kiro Chen, who's a young man who seems committed to helping Leia recruit survivors to the rebel cause. So.
And something else that Delilah is a problem is the fact that their major export was Alderaan. That's where they shipped everything to. So no Alderaan, no exports. So like it's hurting the economy of the planet even more. The fact that Alderaan's gone. All right.
Although actually, all economic theory points to an increased workforce being good for the economy, and it's mostly just xenophobia that keeps refugees from. Being integrated into most societies, but that's, whatever, not to get quote unquote political. Anyway, so
all right. So jumping, I think we're in about chapter 5 right now. Leia is being taken to where they have like a housing complex for all.
Oh no, we got a ton more. This is still chapter 4. You're right. Okay. You're picking up where we're supposed to go. All right.
All right, so she's being taken to a housing complex, and I think there's a child who is seen, who is like lost, and
seems to be separated. He claims to be separated from his parents, and Leia's like wants to help him, and Leon, the deputy, who's showing her around this campsite, is disgusted with the idea that she would want to help like one of her people, basically.
And she and he's kind of like rushing her along, and then Luke's like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll go help the kid. And then, surprise, Luke gets kidnapped. He gets a sack thrown on his head, he gets knocked out, and Luke is kidnapped.
And the kid's like, I didn't want to do it, and then he gets surprised from behind, hood thrown, everything. So we cut to Luke is bound up in some dark room. This has happened already in the last book. It's happening again in this book. So many hostages all through this book. An aptly titled book. So many hostages.
And I thought this would be like the only hostage in this book too. Like,
we're
getting the hostage out of the way. It's not plural on the cover. It should be hostages.
Indeed. You talk about. I was about to try to make a joke about the Christian Bale movie Hostels for some reason. Okay, anyway. All right.
You would have been better off referencing the Iranian hostage crisis if you were looking for humor, maybe. I don't know.
Hilarious real life event. All right.
Yes.
All right. So Luke, he's bound up, and these people that kidnapped him, they were fools. They took his blaster, but didn't notice his lightsaber. Because, lightsabers are just like, people don't even think of them as weapons. They don't even know what they are. So he's able to get a hold of it, and he's about to turn it on, but he hesitates. And something is telling him to let the situation play out. Could it be the Force? Luke's captors, they arrive, and they lead him at gunpoint to a new building where they show a warehouse, where they show him all these people living in terrible conditions. And basically, it's like basically the Prime Minister had shown Leia these nice encampments, and hotels, basically where some of the refugees are staying, but the vast majority of the refugees are staying in these horrible conditions, basically.
They're abandoned factories.
Yeah,
and they reference this as New Alderaan. This just ransacked place.
Basically just like, oh shit, like, whoa, he said that's crazy. So I don't know. And so one of his captors sits him down and reveals himself to be this guy named Jer Naj. Naj is kind of a working class survivor of Alderaan. Although he like makes a whole point about how he's not a survivor or whatever. There's a whole thing. And he initially had intended to kidnap Leia, of course, because he thought the kid would lure Leia away, because Leia would actually be a valuable hostage, but he doesn't know who this kid, Luke Skywalker, is. He doesn't know. So, all right.
I also know Jur is a former fresher salesman, like a shower unit. They call them freshers. He sold those, and he was off Alderaan because he was at the fresher convention.
A lot of people were at conventions. Tons of people were off-world at conventions.
Conventions, smash ball games.
No, we'll get to the
there were all
smash
sorts
ball
of
games.
reasons. There were all sorts of reasons to be off Alderaan.
So Luke and Naj, they kind of go back and forth about his methods. Basically, like, well, if you want to get the princess's attention, kidnapping her wouldn't be a good idea. And Naj claims that they attempted to contact Leia when they heard she was coming, but they got a curt message in reply. So obviously that had been intercepted by these delaying Slemos, is what I said. And so there's another person there, a young woman named Hallie, who seems to resent Leia and Bail getting Alderaan involved in the Alliance at all. Like that's the reason the planet blew up.
She drug them into war.
Basically, is her position. And so she introduces Luke to Shell, who's the same boy from earlier, who is actually an orphan. He wasn't separated from his parents. He was on his parents died on Alderaan. So in a last ditch effort, Luke puts his lightsaber to Naj's throat in an effort to get all these well-intentioned people to let him contact Leia, and they relent. He uses the comlink to talk to Leia. Rather than telling her the whole story, however, over the phone, he asks her to meet him. So he basically says, hey, I ran into these people while I was exploring. You should really see what's going on over here. So then we cut back to Leia. Basically Leia's met back up with Han and Chewie, and they snuck out of the hotel. Because they get the sense that maybe they're not supposed to leave the hotel. So they snuck out and they walk to the bad part of town where Luke is, and Elad, aka X7, and the droids are hanging out back at the hotel. And so they, when they're walking in this bad part of town, they encounter this trio of scumbums, these kids, who they trick Leia into giving them money. Like, basically, they're begging for money, and Leia's a good person, so she trusts them, gives them money. And then the main kid holds Leia hostage, another hostage situation with a vibro shiv, and Han is, like, ready to fight, but the kid gets scared off by a friendly, plump man who Leia seems to recognize, because she says, "You're alive?" And he says, "Afraid so." And I have in parentheses here, "tell that story," and I'm now remembering what that means. So, "Afraid so," he says. When I was back in high school, we went to the Cherry Festival in Northeast Pennsylvania. This town Northeast, not a region. And there was a carny there. Who I was walking, and he was like trying to get me to play a game or whatever, and I said, does it cost more than whatever I had in my pocket, which is like a few dollars? And he was just like, "Freed so, my boy." Like, that's literally what he did. I have witnesses to this account. It was one of the funniest. Like, he sounded like a swarthy dog, and he said,
"Yeah, I was like, that sounds like a pirate."
Yeah, "Freed so, my boy." Anyway, unrelated, but because the phrase "freed so" made me think of it. So this guy who is okay. Continue.
I have a bit here written about that's remarkable. 3 p.m. He hates C-3PO. And there's another remark here where the kids come out, and Han shot back, his finger switching toward his blaster. Not that he would shoot a bunch of kids, but if could scare them, why not distraction? So like the book goes out of its way to say no, Han Solo would not kill any children.
Sure. Of course not. So this guy turns out to be this. At least his name is Fess Ely, and he was apparently a friend of Bail Organa's. And Leia never liked him, thinks he's a snake. But she still tells him that she's glad he's alive, of course. And he offers he offers to accompany them, and she refuses, and he accepts the refusal. So they keep walking, but then Han realizes the dude is following them from afar, and Leia says, "Let him follow." And in her inner monologue, we realize that her father had said, quote, "No harm would come to her as long as Fess Ely was alive." And I wrote here in all caps, Now, we already spoiled this, but yeah, big deal. So Chapter 8 actually opens with a flashback, and this kind of flashback runs through much of the rest of the book, so we'll come back to it a few times. But it opens with a flashback where Leia and her friend Winter, they're spying on like an adult party. They're like little kids at this point. And she doesn't even like Fess at this point. Bail catches them.
She describes him as a monkey lizard-like man. And he's also described as being like portly and having long, straggly hair.
So they're really trying to throw you off here if you've read the other books. So anyway, Bail catches them spying, punishes Leia by grounding her. If she wanted to go to the Ginger Bell Blossom Festival the next day, and he's like, "Nice try." But so that night she's pissed and she sneaks out of the house, and she is unaware of that someone is following her, but she proceeds unafraid. So we'll come back to that in a little while. But back in the present, Han and Leia arrive at the warehouse, where they find the deplorable conditions many Alderaanian refugees are living in. And Luke greets them and introduces her to Naj. And he tells her that there are at least 7,000 of them at this site, probably more around the planet, and she vows to help them. So Naj lends them a land speeder to return to the hotel, and Luke suspects somebody's following them, so he starts doing some crazy-ass driving to like lure the person out, basically. And they're being followed by a Soro Sub X-31. And they suspect it's one of Leon, the skeevy deputy prime minister. They suspect it's one of his men, but Leia says she's not so sure. And so she orders Luke to stop the speeder in a dead-end alley so they can confront the pursuer. Han likes this plan. Luke does not like this plan. So some classic Han's just like, well, that sounds like my kind of plan. And Luke's like, that's some maybe too much influence Han's having on Leia. Like, I don't like that, is basically my feeling. So, the pursuer ends up being, of course, Fess. And I have here that we should read from the bottom of page 50 to the end of the chapter.
50?
Yeah. Yes. What?
Okay, I see where you're at. Okay.
It's like 2 pages. Okay, so
okay, all right.
Starting,
I was looking.
I was looking
at a bit on page 60. So, all right, I know what's going on. Bottom of. Okay, where are we?
Wait, where is that? Did I write the wrong?
Yeah, where is that? I see. I know the city.
I don't know why I wrote the wrong. It's probably 60. Give me a second.
Okay, all right, because yeah.
Oh my God, this is terrible. We're so out of practice with doing real work for this show.
I agree.
Oh my God. Okay, bottom of page 59. Sorry.
Okay.
She shrugged him off. I know what's going on. She pushed past him and climbed out of the speeder. Luke activated his lightsaber and rushed after her. What are you doing, Fess? She shouted. You could have gotten us all killed.
I need to talk to you, Fess said, approaching. This seemed the best way.
Luke stepped in front of Leia and activated his lightsaber. Next time, try a comm link. The man froze, all color draining from his face. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You keep going.
I forgot there's like multiple characters. It's always a pain in the ass. It's fine, Luke, Leia said from behind him. It's just Fess. He's harmless.
Interesting weapon you have there, Fess said in a choked voice. Luke, did you say?
Luke glanced at Leia, ready to take her lead. She sighed and her shoulders slumped. He's a friend, Luke, Han said. Leia glared at him. Well, not a friend exactly, Han added hastily, but he's no danger to us.
Classic Albert Brooks Han.
Yes. You want to talk, Fess? Leia snarled. Talk.
But Fess wasn't looking at her. His eyes were locked on Luke. He extended a hand, and not knowing what else to do, Luke shook it. A strange current passed between them. Luke jerked his hand away. He reminds me of Ben,
Luke thought. Sorry. We were in sync right there.
We were.
He reminds me of Ben, Luke thought, but that didn't make any sense. The two men had nothing in common. Obi-Wan Kenobi had been tall and gaunt, dressed in a ragged cloak, his frown hidden by a dense beard, his eyes piercing. Fess was nearly 20 years younger, his soft features rounded by a life of ease and plentiful food, clothed in fine robes, his face frozen in a false smile. There had been no falseness in Ben. And yet, what is it? Luke thought, frustrated. He didn't know if he was asking himself or Ben. What is it about this man? This Ferris? The word popped out of his mouth before he realized what he was saying, as if someone else had spoken it. Fess took an abrupt step backward, growing even paler. Ferris, Luke said again, filled with an inexplicable certainty. The word drifted through his mind like a whisper. He didn't know what it meant, but he somehow knew he was speaking truth.
No, Fess said with a quiet intensity. Not anymore. Oh. So that's the reveal. We had our suspicions about Fess, but this confirmed it.
Well, Ferris, by the way, they mentioned truth. Ferris, much like Saeed, is so true. You have to be like a deep listener to understand that reference. Anyway, I know we've talked about it on the air before.
Mm-hmm. So we definitely have. So Chapter 9 is a Ferris chapter. And what's interesting is that like the fact that he created a name for himself, much in the way that Obi-Wan called himself Ben. But I'll read just the beginning of this. Ferris Olin, not his name, not anymore, not for a long time. He left it behind the day he arrived in Alderaan, seemingly infinite sea of grass, created a new life for himself. Not that it was much of a life. Tending to nerfs, wandering the grassland, trying not to think about everything he lost, trying not to imagine the accusing faces of the dead, Rygal, Solace, Garen Mullen, and Roan. It was Roan Land's face that he saw when he woke, Roan's voice he heard when he drifted off to sleep. Not that he slept much. He was hiding, he knew that. He tried fighting the Empire, tried fighting Darth Vader, and one bad decision after another had led here, to a life of isolation, a life that wasn't a life, but a mission, protect Leia. Oh. So, and then this...
honestly, I'm going to just keep reading. There's
okay,
so
all
right. We'll talk about... Oh, man. Living like a hermit may have worked for Obi-Wan, stranded on a dusty desert planet in the middle of nowhere, but Alderaan was a world of life and crowds, swirling with social networks, a world of meaningful connections. What might have appealed to him once, back when he was Ferris Olin, former Jedi, former Belasan security expert, former resistance fighter, former enemy of the Empire. Now, he was just former. He had made himself invisible, and invisible men can form no connection. Invisible men can, however, blend in. Gradually,
Ferris gave up his life in the grasslands for a new life in the city, took on a new identity. Fess, a repugnant name for a repugnant man. It was the only way to stay close to Leia. Disappearing in plain sight meant becoming what he hated most, a man who said nothing that mattered, a man who held no opinions except the opinions of whoever he was speaking to. That's us. On this show. A man who lived his life on the surface, so empty of purpose and thought, so inconsequential that no one could suspect he had anything to hide. He became a mirror, reflecting back what people wanted to see and hear, keeping his true self hidden so deeply he'd almost forgotten where to find it. And now Luke Skywalker, of all people, had found it for him, had somehow found him. The Force was strong in Luke, but wild, like an untamed animal. And yet he had the lightsaber. Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. Did he know the truth of its origin? Did he know about his father? Did his father know about him? No, Ferris thought. He'd already be dead. Or worse. Too good, honestly.
Incredible stuff.
So basically, they have an exchange, though, like Ferris and Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke slips up and refers to Ben. And Ferris recognizes this as Obi-Wan's alias because, he had talked to him, obviously, after he had gone to Tatooine in Last of the Jedi. And so he presses him for more info and finds out that Obi-Wan's dead through this interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And this, so basically Ferris is like bowled over by this, and the other important thing that happens here is that Alad offers him some water because he's like been hurt or whatever, and Ferris cannot sense the Force in him at all. He is a void, no light, no dark. This is disturbing as fuck. He's like, who is this Alad fellow? We as the readers all know that it's X7 who is, who the life has been sucked out of him, and genetically he's become like the killing machine, basically. So he wonders if he should tell Luke and Leia about their shared past, about everything, about Obi-Wan, about their father, etc. And he hears a voice that tells him to be patient, and he recognizes it as Obi-Wan's voice. And then we get a brief bit from X7's perspective, that he recognizes that this Fess character knows something is up with him, and he's just like, no matter, he just better stay out of my way. So X7, he's like cold and badass as usual. So chapter 10.
Hang on. There's a couple of things, though. There's some Jude stuff here, all right, that I would say is Jude stuff. All right. So during this exchange,
you're just like promoting this conspiracy.
Because there's so many like there's so many things that she would do, so many things that like allude
I agree.
To
it reads like her completely. I completely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so this is during the exchange between Luke and Ferris. Ferris is asking where Luke is from. Luke says, nowhere near these parts, peering at Ferris, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I'm from Tatooine. That much I knew, Ferris thought. But how did you come to be here? And why didn't Obi-Wan warn me? That was Obi-Wan for you. The Jedi only dispensed information on a need-to-know basis, and he seemed to feel that there was little Ferris needed to know, which was a classic trope of Obi-Wan during the Last of the Jedi series. Obi-Wan did nothing but withhold information from Ferris this whole time.
Yeah, Obi-Wan is like a selfish lover, in my opinion. Just super withholding. So withholding.
All right. And then there was the bit about that whenever he meets Tobin Elad, all right, the Force flowed through every being in the galaxy, good or evil. They all pulsed with different shades of the same energy, but there were few beings in the galaxy who, for reasons even Jedi couldn't understand, lived beyond the flow of energy. They couldn't be categorized into light or dark. They were simply null points, empty as if they didn't exist. This man existed, but the Force flowed around him, not through him. Nothing could penetrate penetrate the hollow at his center. This, to me, reads like the idea of like characters like Gren Omega.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
That there are characters who are void, who are like, they don't give a force presence. So again, just something to think about in these books. So in chapter 10,
So I want to read a lot here. You and I would collaborate on reading. But
we can do that.
We pick up first, though. Let me just get through this. We pick up another flashback, and from the end of the first flashback, so this is like being spread through the book, and another Jude structural trick that she often uses.
Not only is she doing flashbacks over the course of the whole book, but it jumps between perspectives of the flashback. So it jumps between Leia's perspective of the flashback and it's Ferris's perspective of the flashback.
These are not things that cannot be imitated, though. So I don't know.
It's imitated masterfully, though.
Okay, well, we'll talk. I just think the authorship question is we can't let it dominate these conversations, because there's like what more is there to say? You know what I'm saying? So, all right. So it picks up the end of the last flashback, and Ferris is following Leia, little kid Leia here. She's out wandering around at night, and he notices some sleazy motherfuckers that seem to be planning a kidnapping of the princess on behalf of a sleazoid senator named Senator Ack, A-A-K, Ack, who must be a rival of Bale's. And initially, Ferris pulls his lightsaber and is looking for a scrap, but he thinks twice because, he doesn't want to be identified as a Jedi on, Alderaan, which is already under a lot of scrutiny from the Empire. And so he thinks twice and instead mind tricks them into quitting this grisly-ass job and leaving Alderaan forever. And so that's he's protecting Leia. We keep seeing that. So in the present, though, Ferris is devastated by Obi-Wan's death. He's shocked by how devastated he is by learning of this. And I honestly have read pages 77 through 81, starting with never pause. So basically this is Obi-Wan begins speaking to him as a ghost. So you be Obi-Wan.
All right, thank you so much. All right, that's Obi-Wan.
Never pause. Okay. Yeah.
Never pause too long to mourn the dead, lest you do a disservice to the living.
Man, your Obi-Wan used to be good.
It used to be good. All right. I used to do Obi-Wan all the time.
Yeah, at the sound of the familiar voice, especially you're still doing Ewan, you're not doing Alec, which is what you should be trying for. But all right. At the sound of the familiar voice, laced with dry wit and a hint of good humor, Ferris whirled around, and there he was. Well, not there exactly. Not in the full-bodied flesh. Shimmering, translucent, present, and yet somehow absent at the same time. But there. Obi-Wan? Ferris gasped. But you're...
Dead, yes. Obi-Wan smiled sadly. He seemed older than Ferris remembered, his face ravaged by age. It was a life that had been so hard on him. Or death? A necessary inconvenience.
How is this possible?
The past is the past, Obi-Wan said briskly. We have much to discuss about our present dilemmas first.
No! It was so typical of Obi-Wan, this refusal to offer any unnecessary explanation. The Jedi was just as infuriating from beyond the grave. You expect me to act as if nothing of importance has occurred?
There was a long silence. You suffered greatly, I know, Obi-Wan said finally, his voice grave. But you are not alone, Ferris. He spoke as if he could see inside Ferris's head. Maybe he could.
The two men stood silently for several moments, absorbing the emotion of the situation, letting it flow through and between them. This was the Jedi way, to acknowledge and move on. Gradually, Ferris pulled himself together, accepting the new reality. As if sensing his ability to continue, Obi-Wan spoke. He told Ferris what had happened to him on Tatooine, how he and Luke had faced Darth Vader on the Death Star, how he had fallen.
It's imperative that Luke not learn about the truth of his father, Obi-Wan said urgently. He's not ready.
I don't see how I can train him without revealing his past, Ferris argued. It wouldn't be fair to him.
You won't be training him, Obi-Wan said. Luke has learned all he needs to know for the moment, or at least all he can absorb. He needs time.
What he needs is a lightsaber lesson, Ferris argued. Time won't give him control of the Force or teach him how to fight the battles you know he will face.
But it will allow him to discover the kind of man he is.
And without our guidance, what kind of man will he be, Ferris thought. How will he learn whether darkness dwells inside of him? But out of respect for the fallen master, he kept this fear to himself. In other words, you want to watch and wait, he said, as usual.
The time when I could give you your orders is long behind us, Obi-Wan said. I can only ask you to trust me.
It would mean keeping my identity from him, Ferris warned, allowing him to believe that he's truly alone.
He's not alone, Obi-Wan pointed out. He has Leia.
And so they came to the subject Ferris had been hoping to avoid. And Leia, what of her? You would have me continue to lie to her as well? Let her fight side by side with her brother, never knowing who he is or what she is?
You have many secrets from her.
It plagued him. Each morning Ferris woke up wondering, is this the day? Will I finally reveal everything? But something always held him back. She wasn't ready, he told himself. Not yet. Now he wondered whether that was caution or fear. While Luke seemed so youthful and naive, Leia was wise and strong. She was everything that Obi-Wan hoped Luke would become, even if Obi-Wan, so focused on Luke, couldn't see it. Just like Anakin, Ferris immediately tried to squelch the thought. Obi-Wan had been so determined to see the best in Anakin, so sure that his Padawan was the chosen one, superior to all others. How much of that certainty blinded him to the dangerous reality? This was different, Ferris told himself. It was understandable that Obi-Wan focused on Luke, even to the point of overlooking Leia's potential. But Ferris had no such excuse. If Obi-Wan had deemed Luke ready for the truth, or part of it at least, maybe he owed Leia the same.
Only if you know what Leia is capable of and what she needs, Obi-Wan said. Again, Ferris wondered if the Jedi Master could penetrate his thoughts. As I ask you for another trust, I give you mine.
Only then did Ferris realize how much he'd been hoping Obi-Wan would tell him what to do. Much as he hated taking orders, this was one decision he'd prefer to leave to someone else. Oh,
incredible. I never saw that we'd get Obi-Wan twice in this book.
I know. Obi-Wan Ferris scene too. Oh,
I know. Incredible stuff.
So I tried to come up with a chapter 11 joke here and it was impossible. I'm trying to go hard here in these last few episodes.
I know. Me too. I couldn't think of one either.
All right. So in chapter 11 though, we've jumped to the big memorial service for the survivors of Alderaan, for the victims, I should say. Mm-hmm. And Leia speaks to the crowd. And I have here, I wanted to read page 83. I'll just read this.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, listen,
it was a harrowing speech, this speech, Leia.
Yeah, it's an important speech. So, we will never replace what we have lost, Leia said slowly. She spoke softly, but the circling amp droids could carry her voice throughout the chamber. We can only remember it. She pressed a button on the podium, and a large view screen behind her flickered to life. There, in vibrant, living color, were Alderaan green seas, the skies alive with swooping throntas, the polar sea shimmering with ice. There were gasps from the audience, a few muffled sobs, and then a solemn silence. The images were unrelenting, the towering Oro woods, threaded with glittering rainbow-colored lichen, the imposing castle lands, casting their solemn shadow over the surrounding plains. As the lost world flickered behind her, Leia spoke of the beauty of Alderaan and those who lived there. She spoke of the lives lost, never once mentioning the losses she'd personally suffered. That was something she never spoke of, Han had noticed. Publicly, at least, she mourned the destruction of Alderaan as its sovereign, never as a fellow citizen who had lost her family and her home. Upon this stage is an empty capsule, Leia told the crowd. And now I ask you, each of you, to fill it with your memories and your keepsakes, with gifts from the ones you lost, for the ones you lost, with symbols and reminders of what you missed the most. There is a home here for each of your memories, and when the capsule is sealed, it will be jettisoned into space, into the debris field that exists where there should be a planet. I'm told that some call it the graveyard, but I choose to believe that Alderaan lives on there, not in space, but in spirit. This capsule will do what all of us long to do, and never can. It will return home. Oh, so good.
Han, during this speech, he gets choked up with a little bit of emotion, and he ends up walking away. And he's walking away, and he is snacking on a bag of Carillion potato sticks. And he ends up coming across the kids who tried to mug them earlier. These kids are named Mazzy and Jez, and I think there's one other of the kids, but there might be three of them. But the third youngest, there is a third youngest boy. So anyway, Han realizes these kids are not as old as he originally thought they were. They're only like 15, maybe 13, somewhere in there. And, he starts talking to the kids. You find out the kids, they had convinced their parents to let them go to a smash ball tournament by themselves on Delilah, and the day they did that was the day that Alderaan got destroyed. So Han, these kids are living on the street. They're having a hard time.
This last bit with them is incredible. On page 88, do you have this?
Yeah, I agree. So Han, he sees something in these kids, something familiar. He actually gives them he asks if they're hungry. They're not, and then he offers his bag of Carillion potato sticks. They take it. They're all.
I want some Carillion potato sticks. They need to make those.
The fact that they are potatoes, apparently, too. Is
that's fine. I'm fine with that. Everybody, all the people that whine about like hot chocolate and Heir to the Empire need to chill the fuck out, in my opinion. All right. So yeah, like they asked, like the one main kid's like, so aren't you going to tell us how everything's going to be okay, blah, blah, whatever? And then this is so good. When Han pressed his lips together, he leaned back against the wall, tipping his head up to the sky. He'd heard Alderaan had once been close enough that you could see it with the naked eye. Not in the daytime, of course. Under the bright sun, it was easy to imagine that Alderaan was still up there somewhere. But Han didn't believe in lying to himself. He knew what these kids were in for. He'd been there. Kid, if you're lucky, you'll live through it. Nothing I can tell you but that. I'm going full Albert Brooks. Kid, if you're lucky, you'll live through it. Nothing I can tell you but that. And that was a page break. So hard. Like, such a great Han moment. And I had to ruin it by doing my Albert Brooks.
Your Albert Brooks. All right. And then where do we get from there? And then we get Luke. A bit about Luke. That's something I like about these some of these chapters too, is like the characters in a course of a chapter, what each of the three main characters is doing. They each get their own little section.
Yeah. Well, Luke gets introduced. Leia introduces Luke to that Kiro Chen guy, who remember was like helping Leia with recruitment.
I actually have a bit marked here because this is they meet Kiro Chen, and then Leia meets Halle Dre,
and who was the woman that really like called into question Bale's leadership of Alderaan.
Mm-hmm. So Halle appeared beside them as if out of nowhere. This is page 88. Beside her was Jur Naj and Fess Aili. You come here claiming you want to help us, but all you really want are more martyrs for your cause. Leia looked at her. I don't know what you're talking about. There are rumors, Your Highness, Naj said. His voice was gentler, but contained no kindness. And given that you're here with him, he glared at Kiro. I don't even know you, Kiro said, either of you. But we know you, Halle said, and we know what you've been up to. Naj looked sorrowfully at Leia. It's hard to avoid the conclusion that you're recruiting soldiers for your alliance. It's not my alliance, Leia said, a little of that old fire returning to her voice. It fights for all of us. Not me, Hallie snapped. The Alderaan of my youth rejected fighting. It outlawed weapons and turned away from violence until the bloodthirsty Organa family sucked it into war it could never win. That's not how it happened, Luke protested. Hallie turned the full power of her glare on him. Stay out of things that don't concern you, she said in a low, dangerous voice, especially when you don't know what you're talking about. I know. Luke, Leia quieted him with a look. It's fine. Her Highness only wants to know what's best for us. Only wants to do what's best for us, Kiro said. We're all on the same side here. She's not your enemy. Alderaan had no enemies before her, Hallie hissed. Now we have no Alderaan. Call it what you want, but that's no coincidence. Leia stayed silent. It was unlike her, refusing to defend herself in the face of such an attack. The Empire is the enemy to all of us, including Alderaan, Kiro argued, and it's our duty to fight back. So anyway, this Hallie character continues to be in her face and basically call Leia out for dragging Alderaan into war and blaming her for there being no Alderaan at all.
Yeah, basically, and Fess, a.k.a. Ferris, is there, and Ferris is like, basically says, like, well, you know, it is important, like let's make sure that these people can find a new home and all that stuff, like, that is important, and you promised to do that, and she's just like, the most important promise she made is to defeat the Empire. Nothing's more important than that. Leia goes hard. She's just like, basically like, fuck these people. I mean, obviously she's high emotion. So then in chapter 12, Ferris is with Hallie and Naj, because Ferris had kind of seemed to have been aligned with this group prior to Leia's arrival on Delea. So Hallie tells the group that's gathered there that Leia is recruited for the Alliance and that she's planning a meeting with refugees who are interested in joining the Alliance. And so Ferris is growing more and more suspicious of Hallie's hot rhetoric. And Hallie soon reveals that she has contacted the Empire to set up an exchange of Leia for a new planet for the refugees to settle. And everyone, including Naj, the older man, seem to reluctantly agree that this is maybe unfortunate, but it's a necessary plan. And Ferris is playing along for now. But then we cut to Ferris showing up at Leia's hotel room right away, basically tells her about Hallie's plan, begs her to back out of this meeting that she's having tomorrow. And Leia's still suspicious of Fess because, remember, she thinks he's just like glad-handing scumbum. So, and Kiro is there with her, and he suggests that they reschedule the meeting for a different time and location and feed a false location because they think there might be a leak somewhere in their crew. And he suggests that they all move and stay on the Falcon that night. So then we get a little more flashback at the very end here of this chapter where Leia's still wandering around, not knowing about the kidnapping plot or like Ferris saving her. And she starts to climb around. She climbs up a ladder and like jumps off a crane and like is doing wild ass like shit that obviously only her strength in the Force is the only thing that's helping her there. But she slips and falls and gets caught by Fess, aka Ferris, and who takes her home, much to her chagrin. She's like, "I don't need you to take me home," but then she falls asleep in his arms. It's a cute moment. Fess is a good boy.
In the next scene, so it's the day of the meeting, and the plan is now to get Luke, Han, and Chewie, and they're going to meet the people for the meeting of trying to scout people for the rebels, and they're going to take them to a new location once they show up. But Kiro, he said something, because Leia is insistent that she is safe and that Kiro is to be trusted. And he says something to Luke on the lines of, "Oh, it'll be easier than skinning a Nerf." And Luke, he's like, I've heard this before. And so as Han and Luke are wandering towards this, the meeting point, Luke remembers where he heard it from. One of his unseen kidnappers had said it from earlier in it, and he was like, oh no, Hero is with Hallie and the other guys, they're the kidnappers. So they run over to try to save Leia, and they are unsuccessful. Leia is taken hostage, and in this scene too, Luke
Hero gets hurt, but then Naj and Hallie show up and kidnap Leia, basically. So
yep, Luke is also hesitant to pull out his lightsaber during this scene.
He's hesitant the whole book to pull out his lightsaber. And both Han and Luke, though, are blaming themselves for what happened. But then we cut back to Ferris, though, who's waiting with these rebel sympathizing Alderaan people that we're gonna meet with Leia, and Han and Luke still haven't shown up yet. And Ferris is getting nervous, and he receives a comm from Hallie, who, remember, he's playing both sides here. And
classic Ferris, by the way.
Yeah, the ultimate spy. James Bond, get out of here. Ferris Olin, that should be the next Bond. Ferris, like cast Ferris as the next Bond. He informs Hallie, though, informs him that Leia's been captured, and they already figured out that he had gone behind their back. So, like, that double play is not really has backfired on him. So then we move back to a flashback, which is Ferris's perspective on the previous flashback, where I actually have here page 117. I wanted to read some of this. He walks. Oh, yeah. So this is just some good inner monologue shit from Ferris from when he was watching after her as a kid, and it relates to kind of his relationship with Obi-Wan. So he walks slowly, carefully cradling the snoring bundle in his arms. He had not held her like this since she was a toddler. On the day he first came to Bail Organa to explain his mission, Organa had placed Leia in his arms. Ferris had put her down immediately. How could he remain objective if he let emotions cloud his judgment? The Jedi way repudiated attachments, even to a small child, perhaps especially to a small child. He had turned from that way once, and the consequences had been catastrophic. Never again, he thought. Now he knows he had been a fool. He has denied the truth, and this, too, is not the Jedi way. Leia is not a job. She is a child, and he loves her like she is his own. He had not been arguing with Obi-Wan about whether to begin training the Skywalker children as Jedi. He has been arguing with Obi-Wan about whether to begin training the Skywalker children as Jedi. Obi-Wan, as always, urges caution. Ferris has his doubts. Shouldn't Luke and Leia be given the chance to explore their gift, to protect themselves? Doesn't the galaxy deserve a new generation of champions? That's what they have us for, Obi-Wan always says, until they're older, until things change. Until the Emperor is not ruthlessly seeking out and murdering all Force-sensitive children, he means. Until teaching them the ways of the Force is not a death sentence. And the thought that this is on both their minds, though neither will speak it out loud, until we are sure that they will not be like their father. Looking down at Leia, Ferris now understands he will argue no more. Leia might be the key to defeating the Empire, but for now, she is a little girl. Ferris knows that he will not risk her safety for anything, not for the Force, nor not for the fate of the galaxy. He will save her from the truth about herself until he knows she is strong enough to survive it. He will always save her. Nothing matters more than that. Ooh, shit. So much good stuff in there, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I keep saying in my opinion like a freak. I apologize.
In our next chapter, Leia wakes up, and she's in the back of like a van, essentially. And Hallie's there. We also have Naj. And then we also learn that Kiro him and Hallie are a couple. Basically.
Oh, indeed. They fuck. Yeah. They fuck so
100%. So anyway, we find out, she's like, you're not escaping, that sort of thing. And then we get back to X7. He finds some time alone. All right. He tells Luke and Han that he's going to go talk to Prime Minister Manna and the Deputy Minister Von Leon, see if they know anything. But instead, he takes a moment to call up his
Commander Suresh.
Commander Suresh, and he informs them, hey, Leia's been captured. They're going to hand her over to the Empire. And Suresh is like, wait a minute. All right. I know for a fact that the Dark One is referred to as the safe word for Darth Vader. Apparently, they're afraid to say Darth Vader on any communication channel. Yeah, they call it really is. The Dark One is apparently coming.
That's literally, I believe, like one of the names for Voldemort is the Dark One, actually.
The Dark One.
Yeah, anyway, I just remembered that. I was like, oh yeah, they call him that.
Okay, this is a Terry O'Quinn reference from Lost. Do you remember when he was on that 666 Park Place?
Yes.
He was promoting it, and he was doing promotion for it, and he's like, I guess you could say he's influenced by the Dark One.
I have had, Oh no, that's a different thing. Never mind.
So, Suresh.
I am very disappointed in all of you. That's one of my favorite Terry O'Quinn. I won't say Locke because it's not really Locke, but it's one of my favorite Terry O'Quinn line readings from Lost.
Suresh says, okay, Vader cannot get to Leia before you. You need to get to Leia, interrogate her before Vader does. Yeah. So now X7 has to save Leia and interrogate her.
Yeah,
it's his new mission.
I wrote a funny joke for this, so I want to read this part.
Please share.
Luke, I mean, maybe it's funny. I don't know. Now I'm hyping it up too much. Oh, all right. Luke and Han and Chewie and Fess and all of them, aka Ferris, they're all looking for Hallie and Naj in the warehouse district, and they're getting no help from anyone. Nobody wants to help them until that kid, Mozzie, one of the, scratch ball or whatever, one of those kids, he shows up and tells them that Hallie and Kira like to fuck in some old school building. They think it's a secret, but everybody knows. That's what I wrote. That's my joke. And then I said Han gives the kids some credits because he is a nice man.
He does. He is a nice man.
I agree. He's an old softy. He's an old softy.
He is. He's got a gravelly exterior, but he is softer than soft serve inside.
Yeah.
All right. So in chapter 15, Leia she's in a jail cell in like an old construction building, and she finds there's a way out. There's a duct. So she ends up climbing through this ductwork, ends up on a crane. She is hanging onto this crane because she almost falls. Then she ends up falling again. She catches herself, but this time she alerts Hallie and what's the other guy's name? Naj. They capture her again. So they tie her up, and but something great in this chapter is that as Leia is escaping, she's hearing Han's voice in her head. Han is criticizing her in her head, and it is fueling her wanting to escape. All of her doubts in her mind, she is replaced with Han, and it's very, very fun chapter. And then that leads into chapter 16, where the Empire shows up for Leia, and Leia tries to warn them that, the Empire is the one who destroyed Alderaan. You think they're going to give you a new planet? Sure enough, they walk in and they start shooting, and they kill Hallie and Naj right away, take Leia away.
I was blown away by that. I was not expecting that.
Yeah. They get shot point blank, too. They are just mercifully less killed. And you got that one right. Thanks, Mel. And Kiro, he survives because he was leaving the room at the moment, and so Leia mouths to him, "Run." So then we jump to chapter 17. I have read 142 is what I have.
I have that too, but let me set that up. So okay. Luke, Han, Ferris, et al. I used some classic citation language there. I don't know why I'm telling anybody that. They arrive at the schoolhouse, and I put in parentheses more like fuck house, which seems a little insensitive considering they find Kiro there crying over his loss. This is your fuck palace, they say? No.
Oh, Lord.
Fuck palace. It's a great term. Anyway, so Luke is pissed. Luke overreacts, and Ferris is trying to calm him down. So yeah, I have, because Luke wants to know where Leia is, but he kind of goes overboard. So starting on page 142, tears are streaming. They're streaming. Tears stream down Kiro's face. I lost everyone, everything, and then I found her, and they took her from me too.
Ferris nodded. It is a tragic loss, Kiro. I'm sorry.
Sorry? Luke repeated incredulously. He kidnapped Leia, and now he's the only one who knows where to find her? He grabbed Kiro by the shoulders, shaking him roughly. Where is she? Where?
Kiro choked on his sobs, sucking in air like he couldn't get enough to breathe.
Answer me, Luke shouted.
There's so much anger in him, Ferris thought.
Luke's hand strayed toward his lightsaber.
Enough, Ferris thought in alarm. He grabbed Luke's wrist. No, he said firmly. This is not the way.
Rage filled Luke's eyes, and for a moment, Ferris feared he was about to strike. But instead, he dropped his arm back to his side. I wasn't going to hurt him, Master.
I know, Ferris assured him. This was a lie.
He knows where she is, Luke said desperately. He knows, and he won't tell us.
Because he can't tell us. Not like this. Ferris knelt by Kiro's side, placing a comforting hand on the man's shoulders. Kiro shuddered beneath his touch. Anger is never the answer, he told Luke. Whatever you gain from it never helps, never makes up for what you lose. Luke nodded. Yeah. But does he really understand, Ferris thought? Or is he just pretending, the way Anakin used to, biding his time? Ferris reminded himself that these were extreme circumstances. He understood Luke's desperation because he shared it.
Oh, so good.
That's a great little lesson about anger there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Ferris, like... Yeah, no. So basically, Ferris convinces ultimately Kiro by being a reasonable human being, like this guy who just lost this important person to him. Like, so, and Luke obviously blinded by his rage, hence why I did the voice I did.
I noticed that you wouldn't. Yeah,
little classic. You
started off very Luke too. Whenever Luke goes like "sorry," he said incredulously. I heard some Hamill there, and then you.
Yeah, well, then I was like, I literally made a quick switch in my head. I was like, I should do this as Hayden, actually, in my opinion. In my opinion, God, what the fuck am I doing today? Anyway. So, basically he says, like, more people are going to die if you don't help us. And Kiro basically says, I don't know where they took her, but I know somebody who will. And they wind up going to Deputy Minister Varleone, that snake-ass motherfucker, that fucking snake. And so... Han and Ferris basically take him hostage, if you will, another hostage,
third hostage,
and basically like they're like, we know that you you basically set up this trap for Leia, so you got to help us by getting us into this Imperial medical facility where we believe they're holding Leia. So, basically the crew, use Leon to trick their way into this Imperial Med Center.
Well, their plan is to get him to knock on the door.
Yeah.
Ease the stormtroopers outside, and then bonk the stormtroopers on the head, take the armor, fit in the Death Star. Leon stabs them in the back immediately and informs the stormtroopers where they're at. The stormtroopers start firing. Leon gets shot and dies immediately, and then the whole gang has to just blow their way through the medical center, shooting everybody they can.
So yeah, and then we cut to what's going on with Leia, and she's kind of strapped onto an interrogation table, and this Slimo Puan, do you know what this species is?
I don't know what this is. I should actually look this up.
So it's an alien species. He's a scientist, and he comes in to torture her, and he's a true scumbag because his home planet is enslaved by the Empire, but he's working for the Empire as an interrogator. And so Leia, she has a ton of resolve, and he describes all these torture methods that he might use, and she's just nice try, nice try, nice try. But then he introduces this needle, and he's like, this is a hyper truth serum, basically. This is gonna rearrange your fucking brain, basically. And so this scares her a bit, and he's about to inject her with it. Basically, it's this extreme truth serum. There's almost no way that she could fight this, and so then
Puan is from Utapau. It's the same species as the Inquisitor.
Yeah, or what's his face? The gyro copter pilot,
Neon.
The gyrocopter pilot from Road Warrior. Yeah.
Yep.
So regardless, though, this gets interrupted because the intruder alarm goes off, and the dude puts the needle down, and I wrote, phew. So, chapter 19, Luke, Han, and Chewie, they split off from Fess, a.k.a. Ferris, and Elad, a.k.a. X7. And so Fess and Elad, I'll just say Ferris and X7, honestly, from here on. The two of them go up against a ton of stormtroopers, and Elad's fighting style reminds Ferris of Jedi technique. And eventually they whittle down their enemies to 3, and X7 basically starts torturing this guy, one of the stormtroopers, in order to get Leia's location. And Ferris is very disturbed by this, puts a stop to it, and says, just go find Leia, basically. And in the meantime, Ferris then is you know what? I got to get rid of these stormtroopers, and he ignites his lightsaber for the first time in years, apparently, and fend off the remaining stormtroopers, and he feels alive. He feels like he's finally doing something. And then we move to X7's perspective, and X7, as he's going to look for Leia, he catches a glimpse of Ferris wielding a lightsaber, and he's like, interesting, not important for me right now, but I'll file that information away. And so then he makes his way to Leia's cell, and he starts talking to her. He hasn't started freeing her yet, and he finds out that he asks her, what were they going to do to you? And she tells him about this hyper truth serum thing, and he's like, So he uses his blaster to shoot at one of the locks on her, and he intentionally misses slightly so that it creates a pain that's greater than the injection of the truth serum would be, and he does that at the exact same time, so she doesn't recognize that she's getting the truth serum. And so basically he and of course he's trying to confirm his suspicions about Luke. And so she asks him who the pilot that destroyed the Death Star was, and she ultimately relents and tells him Luke, and then he injects her with the rest of the serum, and it knocks her out, and he waits there because he could kill her right then, but he needs an order from his commander, so he has to wait till he can make that report. And so I have here, I have to read page 166 through 167. I don't even know what that is.
In that chapter 2, I want to point out this is a silly moment, but at one point, X7 and Ferris
Could you start
standing
again?
On okay. So at one point in this chapter, when Ferris and X7 are fighting off the stormtroopers, they commandeer a cart, and X7 is pushing the cart, and Ferris is standing on the cart, shooting the stormtroopers, like hanging them down. It's very cinematic sort of moment.
So I guess I wanted to.
What page?
Oh yeah, this is 166. So. This picks up with Ferris, and Ferris gathered his strength and pushed out with the force, and the door flew open. So he's at the cell. Elad stood inside, staring down at the body, the princess's body. Elad met Ferris's eyes. I was too late. Han, Luke, and Chewbacca burst into the room, freezing alongside Ferris as they caught sight of Leia. Han's voice was ragged. Is she... No, Ferris and Luke spoke together. Ferris glanced at the boy. He was connected enough to the Force, or at least to Leia, that he could sense her still pulsing with life, however faintly. Whatever they did to her, she's still alive, Elad confirmed. But we have to get her out of here. He had already broken through the restraints, pinning her to the table. Ferris scooped Leia off the table and cradled her gently against his chest. She stirred in his arms, his eyelids flickering. Father, she mumbled. No, he said softly, hurrying toward the exit. The others covered him. They'd taken out all the Imperials, but you never know what reinforcements would arrive. It's just, he hesitated, not wanting to say, it's Fess, not wanting to lie anymore. It's me. Don't worry, you're safe with me. She smiled, and her eyes drifted shut again. I know. Oh. Man, Ferris is just going through it right now.
And the poetry between the fact that he has to carry her out of here in the same way that he carries her back home after she falls, like, as a child, too. Mwah, is all I'll say.
So good. All right,
after this, let's see here. I know Leia confronts the not the prime minister.
His name is Mana, I believe.
Yes.
So she's recovered the next day, but Vader's still on his way. So they're trying to get off world super fast. So first she checks in with that Kiro, and she offers him a job with the rebellion, and he politely turns her down. Basically says, like, these people, these refugees, they need leadership, and she politely accepts and, like, basically says there's more than one way to fight the Empire and all that. So she's kind of grown in this moment. And then she talks to Ferris, and I think this is an important thing to read as far as Ferris goes. So this is, I believe, the last thing I have. Oh, okay. I have one more reading thing, but we're close. We're close. So yeah. I'm gonna read here from page 172, starting with Ferris had been watching. So yeah, Ferris. Okay. Ferris had been watching and waiting for a long time. He had a new job now, finding out what Darth Vader was up to and stopping him. But how could he explain any of that to Leia? I don't put much faith in groups, he told her instead. Eventually, someone you trust will betray you. Do you have this?
Oh, yes. She laughed bitterly. You sound like Han, afraid to believe in anything.
I can't speak to whether Captain Solo is afraid, but I can assure you I'm not. Is that true, he wondered? Or do I still fear repeating the mistakes of my past? It felt like he was finally taking action. But was he just running away? He missed the certainty of his youth with the Jedi, the rock-solid knowledge that his choices were right. He saw it now in Luke. Of course, he'd seen it in Anakin, too. I support the rebellion, but I have other priorities right now, he said.
What could be more important? She asked angrily.
You'd be surprised.
Then go, she spit out. Don't let me stop you.
There are other ways to fight the Empire, Ferris pointed out. I'm told that Kiro Chen...
Kiro's choice is not based on cowardice, she snapped. Yours is.
Ferris told himself she was wrong. I can't ask you not to be angry with me.
She crossed her arms. I don't care enough to be angry.
I can only ask that you trust me. This is the right thing. If it wasn't, if he left her alone and something happened, he'd forgiven himself so much, but there would be no forgiveness for letting Leia die.
You should go, she said harshly. Minister Mana is meeting me here, and I'm getting off this planet. The Alliance needs me.
One more thing, Leia, he said. This was probably a mistake. He knew that, but he couldn't help himself. She was the closest thing he had to a daughter, and she didn't know him at all. Ferris.
What's that supposed to mean?
It's my name, he said. My real name. You know me as Fess Ely, but that's a lie. I am Ferris Olin. And for the first time in a long time, he was. So good. And then they wrap up the what's up?
Hang on, at the end of that, the next line is, even with her eyes closed, she can still tell her father is standing in her doorway. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
you're getting into that?
Oh, yeah, I just thought that was they wrap up the flashback here. So basically, she returns home and she has this interaction with Bale, and she says, I'm sorry I ran away, you said?
I'm sorry I ran away, she said, opening her eyes. There's no point in pretending to be asleep. Am I punished? We'll talk about that in the morning. He kisses her forehead. I'm just glad Fess brought you home to me. When she hears the name, she gets angry all over again. He didn't have to, she complains. I'm no baby. I didn't need his help. But someday you may, her father says. And I want you to remember this night. Fess will always be there when you need him. If anything ever happens to me, she giggles, not because it's funny, but because maybe if she laughs, she won't be afraid. Nothing is going to happen to you. Don't be stupid. If it does, and you're in trouble, go to Fess. He'll know what to do. He'll always take care of you. Leia shook off the memory. She had believed almost everything her father had ever told her, but she had never believed that. Fess. Ferris. Whoever he was.
Obviously, he wasn't the man Bail Organa had believed him to be. He wasn't anyone Leia could count on. It shouldn't have come as a surprise. It certainly shouldn't have mattered. So why did she feel like she'd lost her father all over again? Crushing shit.
Oof.
Yeah.
Deep stuff here.
Yeah. So, basically, then we're getting into the wrap up here, but Han is waiting around while Leia talks to the Prime Minister, and the three orphan boys, led by Mozzie, they perform a who's on first style routine based around the word respect before telling him that they're joining the rebellion. And Han is skeptical because of how young they are, but really though, he's has a real connection with them. It's not like he tries to put on a brave face, but he's actually really worried about them. And so when Leia's talking to the Prime Minister, she basically uses some dirty ass tactics, and she threatens to spread rumors that he collaborated with the rebels if he doesn't provide Alderaan's refugees with proper living conditions. And she feels bad about this by using these sorts of threats, because that's not something she wants to do. And she basically is like, well, you see what happened to Alderaan, they'll do the same thing to your planet, basically, if you if it gets out there that you collaborated with us. And he's just like, oh, you wouldn't and he goes like in The Irishman when De Niro tells Pacino, it's what it is. They said it's what it is. And meaning they're going to kill him. And Pacino's just like, they wouldn't dare. That's my favorite one. They wouldn't dare. So anyway, she feels really bad about this. And I have here, there's this really good Han Leia scene that I do want to read. You're breaking up a fuckload.
Oh, I still am?
You're fine right now,
okay.
But I feel like anytime you talk for more than 30 seconds, it just goes off the rails.
Oh, no. All right, well, then you read this bit.
All right, I feel bad. I don't want to,
I could try to do the Han, but if I start...
Oh, I want to do the Han. You do Leia.
Okay, all right. Well, it's done. Leia settled into the cockpit seat with a sigh. Chewie was down below, tinkering with the hyperdrive. Luke and a lad were doing calisthenics in the main hold. She and Han were alone in the cockpit.
You made a deal? Han asked incredulously. Oh, no.
Happening again?
Oh, yeah, Jesus, God. We need to maybe just go back to our old way of recording. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
This has been a problem the last couple of weeks. All right. Yeah. You made a deal? Han asked incredulously. That was the idea, Leia said. I know. I just can't believe you're letting that dung grubber get away with it. Sometimes you have to make compromises, Leia told him. I don't have to do anything, Han pointed out. Someone tries to get me, you better be sure that I get them. Some of us try to take a longer view, Leia said. We care about more than just the next payday. And some of us don't have a royal treasury to pay with, Han retorted. Or did you think I carted people like you across the galaxy for the fun of it? I get it. I think you do it because you want to. Only reason you do anything, Leia said angrily. Whatever you want, whenever you want. You're like a spoiled child. Hey, hold on here. If anyone here's spoiled, it's you. Me? Yeah, you, sweetheart, he snarled. You expect me to junk my whole life just on your say-so? Spoiled. I don't expect anything from you but aggravation. You're just like him. Han was lost. Him who? No one. Han never understood how they always ended up arguing, but usually he at least understood what they were arguing about. Not this time. How you live your life is your business, she said, ice cold. You can't commit to anyone but yourself? Fine, but don't think you'll get my respect. Where's all this coming from, Highness? She exploded. Stop calling me that. Apologize, he told himself. It doesn't matter that you didn't do anything. Just apologize. You want me to stop calling you that? He smirked. Then how about you stop sitting up there on your throne and judging us peasants? That stopped him.
No.
I don't have a throne anymore, she said in a rough voice. The Empire blew it up. That stopped him. He'd always thought of their arguments as an exchange of friendly fire. They fought the way children fight, backing off before drawing blood. Most of the time, he only said the things he did to get a rise out of her. He'd always assumed she felt the same way. But this was different. There was true anger in her eyes, like she meant every word. I fight for something greater than myself, she said. So does Luke. A lot. But you? Nothing's greater than the great Han Solo, right? You don't care what the Empire does if it doesn't directly affect you. Who knows if you care about anything? Don't tell me how I feel, he growled. Do you feel? She laughed harshly. Ha ha ha. In that case, I guess I'm wrong. You're not heartless. There's only one other reason for you to behave like you do. You're a coward. Han slammed his fist down. That's what you think, princess? That's what I think, Captain. He stood up, fearing that if he stayed any longer, whatever was between them could break beyond repair. I don't know who you're really mad at, princess, but it's not me. Deal with it. Don't deal with it. I don't care. But leave me out of it. He stormed out. It made a good exit line. There was just one problem. He wasn't sure he believed it. Sure, maybe she was picking a fight to make herself feel better. Or maybe she was just telling him what she really thought of him. Maybe she was right.
Ooh. All right. Chapter 22, X7, he calls up Sharesh, and he tells him, all right, you got to kill this Luke Skywalker character, but you got to make it look like... You got to kill him, but you got to make it look like somebody else did it. So they get back to Yavin.
Because they want him to stay undercover with the rebels.
Right. So they get back to Yavin 4, And X7, he knows that Luke Skywalker, he likes to clear his head by taking a speeder out through the jungles. He knows exactly which speeder it is. He knows that if somebody planted some explosives on that speeder, it would blow up. He knows just so happens where he can find some explosives. They're under Han Solo's bunk in the Millennium Falcon. He goes into the Falcon, he gets the explosives, he wires up the speeder bike, and this book ends with X7, he's just standing against the wall, and Luke comes by, and Luke's like, he's like, oh, Luke, you going for a run on the speeder bikes? Luke sure is. You can join me if you want. And X7's like, no, I'll catch you next time. So the book ends literally with Luke just about to get on the speeder bike, and it says...
And he's obviously framing Han for it.
Yes, he's framing Han for it, and X7 says to him, I know, he says, oh, Luke grinned sheepishly. I know you can't resist weather like this. I know, X7 said. It should be a memorable ride. Let's hope so, Luke said, hopping onto the swoop and waving goodbye. Consider it done, X7 told the commander, and he meant this literally. He served the commander for more than 10 years and had never once failed to accomplish his mission. Once the order is given, the result is inevitable. Luke Skywalker didn't know it yet, but he was already dead.
Wow, that's fucking crazy. This book is fucking conceived. I hate to say
I
it.
agree.
2 in a row, just absolutely conceived in midi-chlorians.
I can't believe it. There's so much going on in this book. The fact that you have people, survivors of Alderaan, who are against Leia. You have this Han subplot with the street kids, which is great. All the Ferris stuff is incredible. All the flashback stuff is incredible. There's so much going on in this book, a lot going on in just 188 pages, and it's all great. It's fantastic.
It's stunning. So, it does not matter who wrote it. I mean, you and I know what we believe, probably, but also, again, why would anybody lie about this? Like, the lying makes no sense on either end. So, I don't know. It's confusing. It doesn't matter, though. The authorship question doesn't matter, because, ultimately, obviously all authorship conspiracies related to William Shakespeare are bullshit, and mostly classist nonsense that, he was of common birth, so that means it was impossible for him to write this. All these conspiracies about Elizabeth wrote them herself. Why? Because she's a royal? Get the fuck out of here. Fucking bullshit. But regardless, the point being, though, ultimately, that's beside the point, because it's about the work. And if Jude Watson's the Shakespeare of young reader Star Wars novels, which she absolutely is, then, if this person's maybe this person's the Christopher Marlowe. I don't know. Which, by the way, Christopher Marlowe didn't write the Shakespeare plays either. You fucking idiots. But anyway, there's a clear difference in their style. But anyway, so yeah. And this is just really, notice that these books are 30 to 40 pages longer than the classic Jude books. And I think that does actually smooth out some of the only issues that there really were consistent with those books, which was these kind of rushed climaxes and stuff like that. This feels everything feels very well considered in these books. This series is starting on such a hot streak. It's insane. I love it. I love the new characters. I love the return of Ferris was so compelling. Ferris is easily one of my favorite non-movie Star Wars characters of all time. I love him. I can't wait to see it. I think we're going to return to him, and we talked about this before, but on the backs of these books, there's these little kind of tiny drawings, and on the last two covers for the last two books, on the back covers, there's a guy with a lightsaber, a big pudgy guy with a lightsaber who looks exactly like Jason Alexander.
Jason Alexander.
And we are now I know that has to be Ferris. That's almost certainly Ferris. So that's very exciting. Anyway, yeah.
You know what? There's a lot of fan art of Ferris online, but there has not been enough of Jason Alexander like photoshopping a Ferris. This is what we need, people.
Yeah, if you're a Photoshop person, go through Seinfeld. It's easily accessible on Netflix now. So just go through Seinfeld, find all the best Jason Alexander faces and stuff, and make him into a Jedi, and you'll have Ferris Olin. So, all right.
Something I did want to say, because I don't think we covered it. They explain why Ferris wasn't on Alderaan. The reason is because he had heard that Leia's ship had been taken by the Empire,
and Bail had told him that actually ordered him to go.
Yes, go find her. So that's the explanation as to where Ferris was. And going back to this, I love the characterization of all the original the character. The dynamic between Leia, Luke, and Han is spot on.
Perfect.
And even Alex is even going for. There's a great bit in this book with 3PO where Han is arguing with 3PO, and at one point R2 there's a door closing, and instead of using his data arm to open the door, R2 rolls underneath the door and holds the door open, and Han thanks him for it, and 3PO is just like, oh, us droids do what we can, 3PO accepts the compliment, which is very silly.
So
anyway, Next
week we are covering, of course, Book 3 of Rebel Force, Renegade, and I had a great idea for this. I think you'll like this idea.
Okay, all right.
I have an incredible idea for what we're going to do to tie into this. We should listen to the album Pieces of 8 by Styx, which features their huge hit song, Renegade. Mm-hmm. And you and I have bonded on our shared love of Styx in the past. Styx, a classic, this band, was made by classic rock radio in the early. We'll talk all about it.
Yeah,
because they're not actually a classic rock band of the classic era, but it's such a fascinating story with Styx. And yeah, Pieces of 8 from 1978. The third single off that record was Renegade. Came out in March of '79, of course.
It was. I remember when we realized that we both like Styx was a funny moment, and you and I bonded like Adam Sandler and Joey Lawrence Adams in Big Daddy because they both like Styx too.
Exactly. So it's a very rare thing for certainly anybody our age to give a shit at all about Styx, but that'll be a fun conversation. But I'm very excited. We'll listen to Pieces of 8 and talk about it. Our first album discussion in quite a long time. So
quite a while. It's not since The Darkness to Hell, One Way Ticket to Hell and Back. So our first music discussion is only our second one.
So yeah, Pieces of 8. Check it out on your favorite music streaming service, listeners. Yeah, jam out to some classics. So all right, Renegade next week. So. This has been a good episode.
It's been a good episode, and next week, and hopefully another great one. So until the books are due back.
The library is closed. Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2021. Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.